Tennessee Republican Congressman Tim Burchett joins us. It's very good to see you, Congressman. Thank you for taking the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. It's always a pleasure, brother.
So, Congressman, let's talk Uniparty. When people say, boy, you guys don't do your job in Washington, D.C., shame on you for just hating on each other all the time. You say there is a massive elephant in the room, no disrespect to the Republicans, animal namesake there. But what is the Uniparty, and how does it mess with your ability to get things done?
Well, it's Democrats that will vote like Republicans and Republicans that will vote like Democrats. And it really just maintains the status quo. That's what we do when we pass these CRs, continued resolutions, because both sides gripe about what we're doing in Washington, yet we pass a continued resolution that continues to fund bad policies. And we've been doing that for 20 years. I mean, I completely believe we have parts of departments that we're funding that are no longer in business, but the money goes to those departments. So, the Pentagon, they've lost over a half trillion dollars in assets. And how did we punish them? $20 billion new dollars in the NDAA that we passed a few weeks back. So yeah, it's like your dad and my dad. You're an old school Democrat. Dad was an old school Republican. They'd fight it out. They'd still be friends at the end of the day, but they wouldn't concede in their core values. These folks have no values. It's just keeping them in power. That's what their values are about.
So when you talk about, it's interesting, Republican orthodoxy, conservative orthodoxy was always, whatever it costs, we got to take care of defense. There seems to be a changing understanding of what that really means and where it is as a priority. And you have membership in this new club. What is your take on the right way to look at defense spending?
Well, these forever wars that we're in right now, see, we're funding both sides. I mean, Iran, all this horrible stuff over there. Well, when we removed the sanctions on their oil production, they've made record profits. Russia, we did the same thing early in Ukraine with their gas profits. Same thing. We were funded. We had contracts with Russia, yet we were funding Ukraine. You just go down the list. It's very obvious to me that our war is for making money. And the people at the Pentagon, I call them war pimps. It makes people uncomfortable, but their business is war, and their business is very good.
Yeah,
old men make decisions, and young men die, and that's currently the state of business in warfare today.
You got a very limited audience that won't take offense to being called a pimp. Let me ask you something. Do you believe that Nikki Haley has worn out her welcome in this process?
I don't think she's worn out her welcome. I just think, she's a friend of mine, so I don't know what's going on in her inner thinking or in her inner circle. But, she's wanting to protect her brand. She eventually sees some, maybe in this administration somewhere down the line, or possibly in the media. The more she keeps her name out, the more she keeps fighting. Her name recognition still goes up, regardless if it's bad. And people are very forgiving in this. These guys. Look at Biden and his vice president. I mean, they were cussing each other. She was calling him everything but a dog.
I was the woman on the bus. I was the woman on that corner. It was one of the most effective broadside attacks, almost calling him a racist, really. And she wound up getting. So, to your own point, does that mean Nikki Haley has a chance? And do you think Trump should consider her as a VP to kind of close any gaps that she may fill in the party, although I think the people voting for her are largely independent Democrats that he wasn't going to get anyway, or they're just people who don't like him who would have voted for anyone but him. But do you think she should be looked at as VP?
Well, it's like the line in Dumb and Dumber. He says you got one chance, 1 in a million. He says, you think I got a chance? I just don't think she has a chance. I think Trump's got some ideas who he wants to pick. I think he knows who he's going to pick already, regardless of what everybody says. And you'll have members of my party floating their own names out, and like, talking to Trump or leaking it out to the media. But Trump's a little smarter than that. And one thing I think he will do this time, before the Uniparty kind of got in there with him, and I think 86'd a lot of his good ideas. I think he's going to go through some of these alphabet agencies like Grant through Richmond, brother. I think he's going to cut them to the quick if he gets the opportunity, because I think enough people have gotten his ear this time and told him who did him in, because it's just so big. You know, it's not a swamp. It's not an ecosystem created by God. This is an open sewer created by man.
Well, I hear you, Congressman, and the American people will probably give you an amen, but they'll also remember he went in there promising to clean the swamp, and all he did was add alligators. It was one of the most, riddled with every kind of perfidy administration that we've seen. So if he gets back in, he can only do better. Appreciate your candor. You're always welcome here at NewsNation. The conversation is to be continued. I kind of missed the coat, I'm not going to lie, but it's good to see you, Congressman.